You're not better than an Israeli, or you're not better than a Palestinian, or you're not better than a Ukrainian, you're not better than a Russian. You are the same thing.
I have a possible thing that could be a conflict that happened today. Do you want to hear about it?
Yes, absolutely.
Drama is
This is what we're here for. Right?
Yeah.
I love to talk. And I
But
love
I like being in conflict, apparently.
First of
The
all,
way it is.
drop.
In my current relationship, I've never had to worry about that.
When my family and my society where I lived in Pakistan, where I was growing up, fortunately, I created a lot of hatred against them, right? And I felt that I was very justified because they're not very fair to me. I should be able to not be a Muslim.
I think most people, when they go to school and they learn about the Holocaust, they think, how could anybody have ever done that?
Right.
So evil,
Yeah.
right? But what they don't know, what they don't think about, is if they were there, if they were the Germans, they would have done the exact same thing. Peace in the Middle East. We did it, guys!
Right?
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today we are going to be discussing one of the big situations that's obviously been cropping up in the news. I'm sure pretty much all of you have heard about it, the Israel-Palestine conflict. So just a very brief summary of what's happened so far. On, I think it was October 7th, Hamas militants entered Israel, committed some massacres, kidnapped a lot of Israeli citizens, took them back to Gaza Strip, and have just generally kind of conducted a lot of different terrorist activities, firing rockets at Israel. Obviously, the Israelis, very upset about all of this. They've taken some pretty drastic actions. They've declared war. They've put Gaza Strip effectively under a siege. And now I think in the last few days, they've even gone into the Gaza Strip with their military forces. So today we're going to be discussing these things, okay? But not really just this conflict that's been happening at this moment of time, because really, this conflict has been going on for a very, very long time. To me, what it really seems like is a lot of tit for tat. So one side will do something that obviously upsets the other side. They kill some civilians, they attack some towns, whatever. Then the other side feels justified in going and doing the same thing to the other side, right? So it very much feels like a lot of this tit for tat going on. Okay, so that's going to get us into our first discussion topic for today. Is what's the deal with all these wars? Because really, this area has seen conflict for thousands and thousands of years. Not just Israel-Palestine, but all kinds of different conflicts. And even though we've got treaty after treaty and all kinds of different settlements have been reached, it still continues to be a problem. So guys, what's going on with this?
That's a good question. I haven't put everything together, but you're making a good point that this same conflict has been happening over and over and over repetitively. There's a pattern, a cycle. So I'm just wondering, what can we talk about that's different today that everyone else is talking about?
And pattern of
Pattern of conflict.
conflict since the beginning of time for mankind.
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It never stops. The man continues to have war since the beginning of time. So first of all, I'm going to say something that this may sound like it's not related to this topic, but it very much is. That you are not individual. I'm not an individual. Your consciousness does not belong to you. Does that make sense to you when I say that? That you are not an individual?
Explain it more.
Your thinking is not unique to you.
Yeah.
Yeah? the idea of you being an individual is what isolates you from the rest of the world instantaneously. Does it not?
Yes, it does.
Right? Let's go to America, for example. You go to America, and people who are suffering in America, or they have anxiety. Now you go to Europe, the people are going through the same suffering. You go to Africa, you have the same thing. You can go to Africa, you can go to Asia, you can go to America. But all those people suffer. They have anxiety. All of them are frightened of death, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
You can go to Israel or Palestine, or you can go to Australia. All of people are frightened of death. They're scared, they're insecure. Your neighbor that might live thousands of miles away as a country is insecure, just as you are. Right? So there is no consciousness that is unique to you. There is a common ground of that consciousness that you share with the rest of the world. Your consciousness is the consciousness of all of humanity. It is not yours, not any more than that your thinking is not yours. Yes? Mm-hmm. From the very poor, uneducated man to the most sophisticated, rich man. We all think, don't we? We might think differently. We might have more complex thinking, or we might have simple thinking, but we all think. We all do the same thing, and we cannot perceive anything outside the scope of our own thinking. Right? Mm-hmm. Does not matter whether it's the most intelligent scientist or an uneducated man. We are actually the same, doing the same thinking, perceiving things within the scope of our own thinking, right? Mm-hmm. So the consciousness is not yours. It's for us to share the same consciousness that is the consciousness of mankind. You're not an individual. And from that springs a natural compassion, a natural love for the other, the thing that is just like you, without sides, without my beliefs. You go to America, people have beliefs in America. You go to Europe, Russia, people have beliefs in Europe.
In Europe and Russia.
You go to Israel, people of Israel have a belief system. People in Palestine has a belief system. People in Ukraine has beliefs. Russia have beliefs. All of us doing exactly the same thing, and yet we feel what? That we are unique in some way and shape or form. We are better or worse, right?
Or right.
Or right.
Right or wrong, yeah.
So it's because we're conditioned. Evolutionary speaking. It's not something that governments have conditioned us to. Because when I say this, you might say that, oh, our governments did that to us. Which is the same thing. You're creating division. Mm-hmm. It is our evolutionary trait that has come along over all millions and millions, these years, thousands of years of conditioning through our evolutionary traits of feeling like an individual, and thus isolating. Being an individual means to isolate yourself from the rest of the world, right? Yeah. Once that happens, there's conflict. There's nothing you can do. And then we create nations, right? We create nations that are proud of themselves.
Isn't that a funny thing?
Yes, they're proud of themselves because we are unique, or we have certain set of values that might be better than others, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the governments perpetuate that idea. So do the religions. So does our modern therapy, psychotherapy. So does all the life coaching and books and everything. Is very focused on this idea of individualism. The purification of yourself as an individual, right? And then we wonder why we have wars. When we are in this constant conflict within ourselves, let's not even go anywhere. As long as you feel like an individual, there is conflict in the world, no matter what. You cannot get rid of it. But when you see the fact of it, that actually you're not an individual, only in your illusions you're an individual, and illusions that have become our reality, right? Illusions that have become reality. And actually, you are the world, and the world is you. And then comes a natural compassion that you have not been taught. You don't have to be taught. A natural love for the thing that is just like you, not different from you. It's the face of the same thing as you. It's a different face of the same thing as you.
Mm-hmm.
Comes a natural compassion that nobody can teach you.
So, no, I like all of that that you just said. So,
You
you
don't have to like it. You don't even have to listen to
no, that's
me
okay.
talking
I do
about
like
it.
it. It makes sense. That's what I'm saying. It makes sense. Let's take it to a little more granular level too, right? So, basically, just what I understand that is everything that you feel and that you will ever feel throughout your entire life, every emotion you have, every type of suffering you have, any trial, tribulations, anything like that, has all been experienced before by everyone else all throughout human history and continues to be experienced across the world.
Yes, consistently, continuously. Yes.
So would you say this war is due to us feeling separated, but it doesn't have to be that way? It's due to our individualism?
What you're trying to find. This is what you're trying to find this one. Why do we have war? And this is the reason. One reason you give.
Mm-hmm.
This is not about why. This is the reason we have wars. This is not about that.
Mm-hmm.
This is not about finding answers. Mm-hmm. This is about examining yourself without feeling the need to arrive at an answer. That this is why, and if I can change this, then my world will be better. That's exactly why we always are stuck in this loop of trying to find an answer. This is about examining, which means simply watching your own self as a happening and not coming to the conclusion of that I'm doing good or bad. So, the conflict arises as long as you feel that you are right and the other is wrong, and you feel that way because you have a certain set of beliefs that you believe in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other side also believes in a certain set of beliefs that you don't believe in. But the funny thing is, both of you believe in what?
Yourselves.
A belief system.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The thinking is done by both. In the exact same manner, you are neurotic about your own beliefs, and she's neurotic about her own beliefs. Mm-hmm. Right? You think that she's so different from you, and you think he's so different from me. But funnily enough, your thinking minds are doing exactly the same thing. Sitting there and creating a scope of your own perception and living only inside that scope of your perception over here, and you only live in that scope of perception. And your whole world exists just here. Your whole world exists just there. Once you realize the fact, not intellectually, but actually you simply see it. There is no this scope of this and this. You see each other and you see yourself. You see?
So it's interesting because when you're talking about like conflict being kind of derived from these types of things, the desire to be right, we're not talking about just war.
No.
You know, we're talking about all kinds of conflict.
Yes.
So if I'm driving down the road and I see a guy swerving in and out of traffic, speeding past people, driving like kind of recklessly, you might think, that person is an asshole.
Right.
They are wrong
Yeah.
to do that. And I'm right. But later in the week, when you're running late for work and you start doing the same thing, you start swerving in and out of traffic, you go, well, I'm justified in doing it because I'm running late for work.
Yes.
Like, come on. There's no problem, you know? You got to understand my position. And you start fighting. And you know, it's funny. Have you guys seen Friends?
Yes.
Yeah? Have you seen Friends?
I've heard about it.
You've
for
heard-
sure.
okay.
Yeah.
So just real quickly, in summary, there's this couple that is dating, then they kind of go on a break, and the one guy, he has sex with another girl, and then the next day they get back together. Him and the old girlfriend get back together, right? So this is Ross and Rachel, right? So the funny thing is she finds out about that he slept with this other girl, and it causes all kinds of conflict. She thinks he's cheating on me and stuff like that, and they have more fights and break up. Later on, they try to get back together, but they're both really kind of just obsessed with being right. They want the other person to acknowledge they were wrong. They were at fault. They were responsible for the relationship going bad the last time, you know? And it causes more conflict in the relationship.
Right.
It just keeps coming around and around and around. So it's kind of like this mentality, it just begets further conflict,
Right.
you know? So even if, like, whatever reasons aside, you know, if it's like a cycle. It just comes around and around and around.
Yes. Like it's a non-stop cycle. As long as you're feeling that what you believe in is somehow superior to another, you will never stop wars. You cannot. And you're never gonna stop feeling that you're right as long as you are a unique individual or a unique soul. You will never see the beauty of being connected to another person in a very natural way, in a way when we are not actually separate. We are the same thing growing side by side, next to each other. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Exact same thing, growing side by side, doing the exact same thing. We might look different on the outside. You're more white, I'm more brown, yeah? You might be taller, I might be shorter. But the content of us is shared over thousands and thousands of years with people that we have never even met, right?
That died a long
Long time
before
ago,
us, right?
they've had the same thoughts. They've gone through the same suffering as me. I'm insecure as they have been. Thousands of years ago. Nothing has changed. Right? They are the same as you. So, if you don't see that fact, and I see fact, don't just listen to me, it's the fact of life, isn't it? Right? Your anger is not different than my anger. You get angry, so do I. So does everybody else. You get everything the same. You have a thinking mind, so do I. Right? So as long as you have that feeling of separation and isolation, you will never get rid of this conflict, and you will never stop feeling right. And I'm telling you not only from just like it's a fact, but also from my own experience, right? Because when my family and my society where I lived in Pakistan, where I was growing up, tortured me, I created a lot of hatred against them, right? And I felt that I was very justified because they're not very fair to me. I should be able to not be a Muslim, right? But that's not true. Right? See, my hatred towards them is no better or worse than their hatred towards me. You see? It's the
But
funny
it
thing.
feels like it's
It
better.
feels like it because you know why?
You can't feel.
Because why? Why does it feel like that you are right always? Very simple. Because you are incapable of thinking outside the scope of your own thinking mind, right? When you have a limit.
Are we incapable, or you're
Of
saying
course
that we are?
you are. Of course, every single human being is, right? Your thinking mind can only perceive things from your own brain, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That is the limit of your perception. And you're stuck in it. So once you realize it, when you actually realize it, you stop that activity of thinking, right? Because you realize that there's no way I will never be biased. You understand?
Mm-hmm. It's always
So you look at the other thing, I'm like, you are just exactly the same way. We are both biased. We are both incapable of looking outside of our own what? Mind. Therefore, the only thing there is left to do is to love. Because there's the only thing that's left is that compassion of understanding that you're exactly the same. So therefore, you don't hurt the thing. And that's all done without thought. You see?
So
Thinking only takes you in your own bubble, keeps you in your own bubble.
What were you gonna say?
how is that? How come thinking keeps you in a bubble, even though we share thinking? We just share that we just share the consciousness that we are able to think, but our own thoughts are just our biases.
You're incapable of thinking beyond your own thinking. Think
Yeah,
about
that's
it.
what you said.
Right? Beyond your own thoughts. Your limit is your own thoughts. Even the thoughts that I create, as long as I say to those thoughts to you, they become whose thoughts. Right. So you're incapable, which is not a bad thing, this is our biology, you're incapable of looking outside the scope of your own thoughts. And once I see it, I don't think about it, which is what you're doing right now. You see what I mean? You're thinking about thinking and how to limit the thinking or how to open the thinking. All of it leads to the same place. Try to become open takes you in the same place. Now you're trying, you understand? Mm-hmm. The whole point is, as long as you're stuck in your own thinking of any kind of way out of it, you're stuck. The moment you stop that activity of the neurotic mind and you see that this person right there is doing exactly the same thing and they're incapable of looking outside their own thinking, you don't get mad at them when they are pointing their finger at you. When the Israeli is going attacking, right? Mm-hmm. You're not gonna get mad at who's right, who's wrong. You understand the basic essence of the human being, which is not different from you. You're not better than an Israeli, or you're not better than a Palestinian, or you're not better than a Ukrainian, you're not better than a Russian. You are the same thing. The only thing that is at the heart of it is when I say this thing, I don't want you to start thinking about it. Right?
Yeah.
I have a
I was thinking my next question. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I have a possible thing that could be a conflict that happened today. Do you want to hear about it?
Yes, absolutely.
Drama is.
This is what we're here for. Right?
Yeah.
I love to talk. And I
I
love
like to be in conflict, apparently.
So do a lot of human beings. So do all of us. Look at all around us. All around us. The world is full of conflict, honey. Yes.
Okay, so went on a date with a guy, and there's been this history of trying to get on a date. Okay, he talks a lot. He wants kind of like over promises, but doesn't follow through. And so it happened again today. So I'm like, I'm adding the pieces from the past of this pattern. And so today I was like, just so you know, a pet peeve of mine is not following through. So,
And by following through, it means he's not doing what he says he wants. He's gonna do.
yes.
Yeah.
So for instance, today it was, I'm going to come see you and, kiss your face or whatever. So I was like, oh, that's sweet. And then the day went by, nobody showed up.
Mm.
And I was just like, I kind of knew. I was like, oh yeah, let's see if he's full of shit, basically. And he was. And so I was like, oh, sounds like you are full of promises. And then he came back with, don't make me feel bad. I'm working all day and you don't know my schedule. And I was like, well, just, don't tell me something if you're not going to do it. Because I don't like that. And that's like a deal breaker, basically, for me. I wasn't angry or upset or anything. I was just like, this is a fact that you're doing that. It's not going to work for me. So, I don't know. Would you consider it a conflict? Would you?
Sure.
say?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like that's your preference, I guess. It's your life. I'm glad you didn't. You said you didn't get mad at him.
No, I wasn't
Okay.
mad.
What did he? Was he mad? Did you break up with him, or what happened? Like, what was the outcome?
And this
of
was all through text messaging.
all through text messaging.
Yeah. So
Okay.
he initially thinks I'm mad at him and gets offensive about it. And I just said, I was like, look, I'm not mad at you. I'm seeing this pattern. Just admit it. And then don't tell me things like, I know you're excited. It seems like he's excited. He wants to do these things, but he doesn't have the bandwidth
Mm.
to do all of it, or just like he's too scattered. And so it doesn't show up.
Okay. Still, like right there, in his first response, you see. So hold on. Did you confront him with that, and then he got defensive?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a conflict. Sure. Okay, you can, I guess, see what we're talking about. Right in that, we got both people who have their own perspective. Right. You told me that you were going to do this thing, and then he says, "I was at work. I was busy," and then we have a conflict. Same thing.
So how do you bring this compassion you're talking about into that?
How do you bring the compassion?
Yeah, like how do you look at it in the different? Is there a different way to look at it, or is that just
First of
the
all,
way it is?
drop.
Okay.
See, you guys are talking about. You're wasting so much psychological energy on the things that are completely useless. He's not into you. Simple as that. Or he's too lazy, which means he's not into you. Do you understand that?
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm.
If I love my mango, I'm gonna freaking go eat it. I'm not gonna sit there and say, or forget about it, because I'm too busy. If I do that, it means I don't necessarily like the mango as much as I claim to. So you drop him. And once you drop him, then you don't have to ask this question about compassion or anything. Right? He's done. Once you drop him, there is peace.
Peace in the Middle East. We did it, guys.
Right? But you don't do that. what you would do, what most people would do, you continue to egg him on and see what you can get out of him. How much, and then he will give you a little bit of will say, oh, I'll do this for you. And then you think, oh, I'll throw these into me. And then you go on another date, and then something like this will happen again and again and again, and this cycle will continue. And then you inside, you will feel like, well, maybe I need to be nice to him and all that. And you discontinue this wastage of psychological energy. When the answer is right in front of you, right here. It's simple. There is no question of compassion or anything. Compassion I talk about is not that.
Okay.
Compassion I talk about is not this cultivated thought process. Right? It's a natural spring that happens in awareness without choice. Because, yeah, you understand? So it's not, you don't have to try to be compassionate. You drop them. That's it. We'll see what you will actually do.
Right.
So,
I know.
yeah, you drop
You
them.
did end up asking, like, well, how about dinner tonight? I'm like, I'm busy.
Dinner tonight?
Yeah.
You see what I said? He finally decided to give a little bit there, and then she's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
be
yeah.
like, yeah,
It's like a
You-
little
yeah.
little bone,
little bone here. Because
I don't
you
know
asked
anything
for it.
else. I don't know anything else.
You begged for it, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'll give you this after all. Well, you drop him. A natural connection happens naturally, not by force. It happens without the will of like, oh, we ought to make it work when it's not working. You understand? Oftentimes, to give you an example, oftentimes when my wife, Lori, if I want to bring her something at a workplace, nothing can stop me. Nothing will stop me. I can have a 12-hour lesson day, 13-hour lesson day, and her office is 20 minutes one way, and I know it's going to take me about an hour to do this. I would do it no matter what. I would go to the extent of canceling my lesson or moving my lesson, and I do it. So
Yeah, I like that.
You
I
say
like.
that happens right off the bat?
yes,
Really? Okay.
right off the bat
Doesn't
from the
take-
beginning.
Doesn't even take time to get to
No.
know each other?
No, no, no,
Okay.
not absolutely not. Nope. See, all of these things that you're saying is might take time and all that. These are all excuses.
Hope.
These are all excuses. These are all excuses to make something last. And you making this thing last because you're obsessed with your own pleasure of you don't want to be alone. You want to have something that's interested in you. Or remotely somewhat little interested in you. So you just want to keep serving your ego. And you keep going on with this thing because of your own ego. There's nothing to do with this other man.
Great.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. I was gonna be like, well, why don't you leave him?
Oh,
'Cause, you
I,
know, I think it's just,
But
it's
all-
the same thing as what
I've only
everybody has
not-
experienced. The
I've
same
only
reason, the same reason people haven't left before, right? It's because they don't.
And
want
we
to-
all have done that, haven't we?
We have,
all,
yeah.
yes.
We all have done that.
But I'll say the one, in my current relationship, I've never had to worry about that. I think most people, when they hear you talk about, oh, like he says he doesn't have time for this, that, or the other, most people will think that's like a relatively small thing. I don't ever want to deal with that. And I don't have to, thankfully.
Yeah.
That's my girlfriend. And yeah,
Well, that's the good news. That's good news.
that
then.
is,
Yeah.
You can just drop it.
But you
I
have,
think
do
we
you have
should.
the courage to drop and be lonely and not have those? Yes, that's also about that.
I do. I just don't know actual interest, so I get confused, or like, you know, there's some sort of time or this say they're interested and they do certain things, and you're like, is it? Is it? I don't know.
If it's a pattern, then drop it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If it's a pattern, drop it. No questions, and don't overthink this thing.
Okay, so I just say.
Yeah. Anything else?
I did have one more, I guess, thought. It could be our last little.
Yes, we finish
Little
on that,
talking
and then
point.
we'll make some excerpts of this thing. Not,
Absolutely,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? Like not
We'll put-
instead of posting the whole thing, like
We'll put like
Yeah.
a little teaser in the beginning too.
yeah.
Little hook. But anyway, our last, I guess, question for tonight. So this is one I was thinking about a while ago in the discussion. So we're gonna flip back to, I guess, nation conflict, right? So let's say we have a society of people who think this way, right? For whatever reason, that's what they do. But then we have another society of people who are still in the ego, how they are better
Or right,
and,
yeah.
or they're right, or just something. They're right
Differences-
about something,
Yes.
and they want to go to war with the other group.
Which group?
The group that doesn't think that, the chill one, we'll call them. It's interesting to me because thinking about just like conflict on that kind of a scale, it feels almost like you have to engage in that type of thinking in order to defend yourselves. You know what I mean? Because while what we're talking about is definitely true, I think there's definitely still lots of examples where people are aggressors and people are defenders, and they should not be expected to subject themselves to the aggressors. You know what I mean? Whether it's like a caveman coming and trying to steal another caveman's food by killing him, or whether it's like a country going to war against another country. It seems almost like a catch-22. You know what that is? You know what I mean?
No, I understand what you're saying.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it's the most common thing that I would hear to what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, what's playing right now is your brain trying to analyze how can we justify that conflict.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening right now. That one side is the aggressor, the other side is the defensive, right? But what oftentimes human beings forget about is this, that what does it mean to live peacefully? It doesn't mean to live peacefully 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, or this lifetime. What you're seeing in your lifetime is the only thing you can process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have some historical information from the past, from your group, that this is what's true, that's being fed to you, which has nothing to do with what actually happened, but it's the information that's perceived through generations and is passed on to you. So the group that you might see now is peaceful. You don't know what they have done in the past, or have they always been peaceful since the beginning of time, which obviously they haven't, because they are also mankind.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So the moment you create this notion of I am peaceful and you're the aggressor, it's a conflict.
You're engaging in the same.
You're engaging in the same thing, and you're saying that in this very moment I am right because I'm peaceful. Look at me.
Mm-hmm.
But being peaceful doesn't mean that you're just peaceful for 2 days. What I am saying is you cannot find the answer in this one action of if I just do this, if I'm peaceful right now. The only way the consciousness of mankind can change, is when you have that compassion in here. And you don't try to project it where?
Onto the rest.
To the rest of the world.
Yeah.
When you don't try to force peace on the rest of the world, because by trying to force peace to the rest of the world, you create conflict.
Mm-hmm.
You see it? So therefore, what I'm saying, you can do nothing. You can do nothing to change the world. Every effort that you make to change the world is going to create a conflict. The only thing you can do is just this. So therefore, you cannot think that when a tyrant attacks me, I must defend. Because when you think that way, you're already in this state of conflict. And when you're in the state of conflict, you're anxious, you're afraid. And out of fear comes these rash, violent actions that you will later justify as the result of being peaceful. You see it?
But
Yes,
I guess
you
I
see.
guess here's what I guess my I'm not trying to like make a point.
No,
But you're-
but I understand what you're saying. No,
So what's going on?
that's
is,
human brain. What you're doing.
Well, hold on. So what's going on? What it seems to me that, well, yes, this does cause conflict. There's also, to put it frankly, there's power in conflict. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, for people who are willing to engage in that, they can find power. They can destroy people, right?
Right.
They can get shit for themselves.
Okay, go thousands of years from then. There now, like thousands of years. The powerful man was hurt a lot of poor innocent men. Thousands of years later, the innocent man finally decided that has now evolved into a powerful man, and now wants to take revenge on the what?
Powerful
the other
man.
powerful
Yeah.
man, right?
Mhm.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
This cycle continues,
I agree.
right? The resentment builds in the other group over time, right? Which only leads to what? More war, right? And the powerful man does this to me, therefore I will do this to them. You may not be able to do it right now, but hundreds of years later, you will be doing that. And then you will become the big bad wolf, and the other will become the weakling.
And you're
Yeah.
becoming just exactly what you hated.
You see this very, very easily right now. Just 100 years, about like 80 years ago, Jews were the oppressed.
Yeah, the
The
oppressed.
weakling. And right now the Palestinians are calling the Jews the oppressor. Right?
Yeah.
You see it, and this is just within 100 years.
And then
Just-
100 years later, it may be
It'll
the
be some,
Jews.
it will continue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you think like that there's a big bad wolf, this is what I'm saying. The tyrant is not bad. And this is so hard to see for us. The tyrant is exactly the same as you.
No, 100% I agree.
Yes. And I say that as a fact. It's a fact. My torturer who tortured me.
You were the same
Or-
as him.
yes. The tension that I felt, the hatred that I felt against my torturer is the same hatred that he feels against me. Maybe for different reasons. Maybe because of different thoughts. But our brains are doing the same thing.
Okay, can I ask one more question,
Yes.
Shar?
What?
If you were in Germany, okay, during the Nazis, what do you think you would have done? What do you think you would have done?
Who do I think I would?
Yeah.
Which side am I on?
Well, no, just like think of yourself
You
like
pick
you
the
were
side.
born in Germany. It's 1920, right? Hitler comes to power a little later on, and lots of people are Nazis now. They want to kill Jews. Do you think you're going to be the person who kills the Jews or saves the Jews?
I'll do one side or the other, with the same as what everybody else is doing.
The same as what everybody else is doing.
He's asking you, what would you do?
What would I do?
Would
So-
you save the Jews? The simple question is this: would you save the Jews or would you work against the Jews? Would you work for Nazis or would you work against the Nazis?
Would you be a Nazi? Yeah. Wait, so you said you just
This is
you do it like everybody else does?
I'm sure if I was born at the time, if I was a Jew, I would have done whatever the Jews did. If I was a German, I would have probably done whatever the Germans. If I had an identity with one or the other, I would have probably been doing whatever they were doing. If I had an identity.
Okay. So that I think is the correct answer. Okay? I think most people, when they go to school and they learn about the Holocaust, they think, how could anybody have ever done that?
Right.
So evil.
Yeah.
Right? But what they don't know, what they don't think about, is if they were there, if they were the Germans, they would have done the exact same thing. I think,
Yeah. Wow.
so Jordan Peterson said something really prescient once, okay? History is about you. It's not about somebody else, okay? When you hear about horrible things that have happened before, you're reading about yourself. All of those things you are capable of, and if you don't understand that, you don't know anything about yourself.
And I might add, you don't even know what you're capable of. Still. Right? Like all the things you could read about what you're capable of, but you still don't know what you're capable of. You can never know. You can never know unless you are in a situation and unless the thing happens. And even then, after it has happened, you still wouldn't know what would happen again. What would you do? You can never know. And therefore, it's very freeing. You don't, yeah, it's very freeing. Okay.
All right.
All good now.
That
Yes.
It's good. Thank you all for tuning in so much, and we will see you next time.